Okay, go.
Ko tihei Māori ora, e ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ro rangatira mā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live discussion that is a part of the Antarctic Youth Coalition's Antarctic Festival. My name is Caleb. I'm a law and science student at the University of Canterbury, and I am the Christchurch representative on the Antarctic Youth Coalition. I am also going to be moderating our kōrero, our discussion about Antarctica Day today. Thank you all for coming along, and I hope you can take away something from the conversations that we have today. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat at any time as well, and we will do our best to answer. I'll now pass it over to Chloe to introduce herself. Chloe, you're on mute.
Hello everyone, I'm reaching you here from Hobart. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Palawa people of Nipaluna, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I am the Hobart representative of the Antarctic Youth Coalition, and I am a marine and Antarctic scientist with an aspiration for science communication.
Cool. Ridzi?
Hello, my name is Ridzani and I'm the South African representative of the Youth Coalition. Yeah, what really sets Antarctica apart for us is the fact that we have a very strong heritage with it, mostly because we are still going through our democracy, and we have, and on the 21st, which is our Heritage Day, is also our Polar Antarctic Day. So it makes it even better.
Cool, cheers, Ridzi. Flor?
Hello, everybody. Hola a todos y todas. My name is Florencia Garro. I'm from Ushuaia, Argentina. It's known as the southernmost city in the world, where I was born and raised. I'm the Argentinian representative on the Antarctic Youth Coalition, and I'm really happy and proud to be part of this project. I'm really connected with my city. I'm connected more than four generations here. My grandmother is considered one of the last descendants of the local community here, and now we are working on the future of the city and the connection between these cities and Antarctica. So happy to be here.
Fantastic. Katia?
Hello, everyone. My name is Katia. I'm 25 and I'm from the city of Punta Arenas, Chile. As well as my friends here, I'm really happy to be part of this project, of being part of this coalition. And I just want to say, be strong, stay strong to all the people from Punta Arenas, that we are having 100 days of quarantine. So keep it together and we are going to thrive.
Awesome. And lastly, I'd like to introduce you, Juan Francisco Salazar of Western Sydney University. And he is the man that brought the five of us youth together. And it was through his project that we actually founded the Antarctic Youth Coalition. Juan, do you want to just tell us a bit about yourself, this project of yours, and how the Youth Coalition came about?
Thank you, Caleb, and good morning, everyone. Y buenos días a todas y a todos. I'd like to start by saying I'm in beautiful Gadigal country of the Eora Nation in Sydney and pay my respects to elders. This is a project that has been going for 4 years. I'm one of the lead researchers. I am a professor at Western Sydney University. It's a collaboration between a range of universities and local government in the 5 cities that are the official gateways to the Antarctic: Hobart, in Tasmania, Christchurch in New Zealand, Punta in Chile, Ushuaia in Argentina, and Cape Town in South Africa. And this is the last part of this project that is funded by the Australian Research Council. And it's very promising and beautiful to see these 5 young leaders coming together. We invited them through a competitive process to go to the Antarctic Peninsula, to a Chilean research station sponsored by the Chilean Antarctic Institute. And we spent a week there, as you're going to hear in a minute, to launch this coalition that is meant to activate, inspire young people to work towards the future protection of this magnificent, wonderful region of our planet. So that's me. Thank you, Caleb.
Cheers. And I think something that's really interesting about what Juan has done in bringing one youth representative from each of the 5 gateway cities together is that through our discussions, we've learned that although we all fit under this one umbrella term of being gateway cities, our connection to the continent differs drastically from city to city. I know for Christchurch, we have a strong historical link to Antarctica that dates back to the early 1900s with explorers such as Robert Falcon Scott and Ernest Shackleton, who used Port Littleton as a departure point to the continent. And each year, our city is recognising that connection more and more and ensuring that it's part of our urban identity. And so my first question for the group, and Ridzi kind of touched on this already, is what is something that's unique about your city's connection to Antarctica, or something that makes your city known as a gateway city? And I think we'll start with Katia.
Thank you, Caleb. In my case, the first word, beyond cold and big and wide, it is a word unknown, because even though we have so many things like knowledge and books and historians that tell us what it is Antarctica, there is so much that we don't know about yet. And that is what really calls my attention, that it is a place that for us, that we know of, is really, really important. But the rest of the community, our society, they don't know about Antarctica yet. And that's the message we need to spread, the importance of Antarctica.
Awesome. I mean, I totally agree. It's something that's not talked about enough when it's so crucial to how our world functions or even exists at this point in time. Chloe, do you kind of want to talk a bit about Hobart's connection to Antarctica?
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. Coming from Hobart, our connection to Antarctica stems back from the early exploration days of Sir Douglas Mawson. But in the present day, I would say Hobart's connection to Antarctica is all about science. So Hobart is actually a place in the world that has the highest concentration of Antarctic scientists living in that one city. So we have different institutions and organisations. So the University of Tasmania has the Institute of Marine and Antarctic Studies, which is right here in Hobart from where I am today. We also have the Australian Antarctic Division. We also have CSIRO, which is right next door. So we have a really, really big population of Antarctic scientists living right here in Hobart. But unfortunately, what our city doesn't have is a lot of much needed education and outreach to get into more of the youth of Hobart. So that's where I hope to come in and improve that, to make science very available and accessible and easy to understand for the whole of Hobart and not just the science sector.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important at the moment. Science can be quite confusing to some people and filled with a lot of confusing words and tables and stuff that is quite difficult to understand. So being able to communicate that in an effective way is something that's going to be really important moving forward. Flor, do you kind of want to just talk about how Ushuaia kind of differs? I know Hobart's a community that's full of scientists. Maybe Ushuaia is a bit more tourism based, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. We also have a research team here in Ushuaia, but Ushuaia is mostly connected by the tourism. So Ushuaia is the closest gateway city to Antarctica. We are only separated by 1,000 kilometers. So mostly of the tourism pass through Ushuaia to on the way to Antarctica. So the people here are used to see on the port so huge ships and a lot of people going on the city with big jackets, and clothes, buying some stuff before the trip. And it's really crazy because most of the people here living here in Ushuaia, they don't even notice or they don't even care about this. I'm hoping that in the future we have more identity on this gateway city, Antarctic city.
Absolutely. So I guess that flows quite naturally into why it is so important to have that connection to Antarctica. And I think part of that is the scientific reasons. I think, the main reason that people travel to the continent is for scientific purposes. So I think the perfect person to answer some of these questions would be Chloe. What is it about Antarctica that's made it such an interesting and important place to study and learn more about?
Yeah, well, Antarctica is, I'm not sure if many of you have heard, but we often regard it as the world's biggest natural science laboratory. And this is because we don't have very many people down there. No one really lives there. Also, we have records of what Earth's climate used to look like. That's trapped in, the 2 to 4 kilometre thick ice sheet. So we can use this place as basically an indicator of climate change because it is already such a fragile and sensitive place. Effects of climate change are very easily seen down here. Now, when we think of Antarctica, it's a big chunk of ice, a big white layer of ice that is sitting on top of this continent. And what happens when we have something that's white? What happens when the sun reaches it? Well, it actually deflects or reflects some of that heat and that solar radiation back up into the atmosphere. So the Antarctica and the color of all this ice is actually helping keep Earth's temperatures livable for everyone on the planet, no matter where, if you're living in Chile or if you're living in New Zealand or if you're living in a landlocked desert in Arizona, everyone is connected to Antarctica because it's helping deflect a lot of that sun's radiation back up into the atmosphere. Now, not only this, but also the Southern Ocean is really, really, really important because it actually connects 3 of the main big oceans of the Earth. So we have the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean. The Southern Ocean actually connects them all. Now, the biggest current in the whole world is uninterrupted and it goes all the way around Antarctica. And this is called the Antarctic Circumpolar Current. Now, this, as well as some really cold, salty water that is a product from the sea ice formation, that basically helps drive the entire ocean. So I'm not sure if anyone's too familiar with the term, what we call the global ocean conveyor belt. So basically, this is a really great graphic here, which shows how connected the oceans are. And the current that goes all the way around Antarctica really helps connect this. So places that are a little bit too warm or a bit too cold, this is really, really great to mix the entire ocean. So Antarctica is not only important as a continent with that reflection of the sun's heat back into the atmosphere, it's also really important in terms of the ocean as well, because the ocean really affects the whole climate of the Earth. So no matter where on Earth you are living, Antarctica plays a really important role in your livelihoods, in your lifestyle, and it keeps, you know, the temperatures okay for us all to live here on Earth relatively comfortable.
Awesome, thanks, Chloe. And then if you kind of see this next slide that's up at the moment, you'll see it says heating up, and that's something that we, I guess, kind of experienced in our time in Antarctica. The Antarctic Peninsula is one of the more rapidly changing environments in the world. There's been a temperature increase of 3 degrees Celsius in about the last 50 years. And also about a week before we arrived in Antarctica, the record for the highest temperature ever recorded in Antarctica was broken twice, once at 18.3 degrees and then again at 20.75, which was one of the bigger jumps that it's probably ever seen. I know for a lot of people, the first thing they think of when they hear Antarctica is snow and ice. And so especially for us, that probably wasn't necessarily the reality in King George Island. Florencia, do you kind of want to talk about the environment in Antarctica that we experienced, and did it surprise you at all when we first landed, getting those first looks at what Antarctica was like?
Yeah, I was expecting everything white and cold, and it wasn't like that at all. So when we get there wasn't snow at all, and there was a lot of green areas that I never imagined, and I never know that it could possibility be there. So it was really shocking, and it was really sad to see Juan, our project leader, really concerned about this, because he traveled 4 years before, and the environment was completely different. So the climate change is real, and it's changing really, really fast in this area.
Juan, do you kind of want to, branch out on that and kind of explain any differences that you noticed in that 6 years between your first expedition to King George Island and your subsequent one with us?
Yes, Caleb. Before 2020, when we all went together, my last trip to Antarctica was in 2014. That was my third trip to Antarctica. And during that time, we were traveling on one of the Chilean Navy ships that was hired by INACH. And there was a very important Chilean geologist that had been studying glaciers in the Antarctic Peninsula back in 1965. And when we arrived to the glacier that he was studying, the glacier had completely retreated. And I remember his face of horror and sadness of seeing that change in 50 years. And something similar happened to me, although on a smaller scale, when we went together in 2020, that the landscape seemed quite different to the last time that I had been there 6 years earlier. And when we went to the Collins Glacier, I could see the effects of global warming. And I know it's difficult to measure scientifically abrupt climate change in a short period of 6 years, and part of it could be natural variability as well. But it's striking when you feel that sensation of feeling climate change unfolding before you. It's really strong. So as you might remember, it was an emotional moment of seeing the glacier covered with soil and basically melting because of the high temperatures that happened during that summer. As you say, Caleb, the historic record recorded in an Argentinian base not far from where we were. So climate change is not something that is deferred into the future. A lot of people can experience it right here, right now in their daily lives.
Yeah, and I think
Might
that
just
is
add.
Oh, go for it, Chloe.
When we were down there, some of the glaciologists and climate scientists actually let us know that during the summer in Australia, we had some really big bushfires. And this just goes to show how connected we all are in terms of atmospheric circulation, ocean circulation, is that some of that bushfire smoke was actually detected in parts of Antarctica where we were. So it actually reached all the way down to King George Island, which is just crazy. So Antarctica is really susceptible to everything that happens on the planet.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like a way of looking into the future where it's almost ahead in terms of climate change than we are in our own countries. We don't notice it, but you can look to Antarctica to see what kind of changes we can expect to see in the future. Katia, I know another thing that people think of when they hear Antarctica is penguins, which are awesome, and wildlife. What kind of different animals could someone expect to see on the Antarctic Peninsula?
A funny thing is that before I traveled there and before I get into this Antarctic world, for me it was just whales and penguins, and my dream was to see a whale, and we could see it. But for me, it was penguins, and that's it. And then when Chloe, for example, she was saying, "Oh, that's a gentoo penguin. Oh, that's a chinstrap," and for me, it's like, how can you differentiate them? You know, for me, it was like penguins. But now that I've been studying and teaching my students about penguins, it's like a realization I have. Like my eyes, my mind is open. It's like, oh, now I know that there are different penguins and there are different birds, for example, and the whales. I don't know how to say orca. I think it's the killer whale or orca, just, and the different pinnipedos, you know, like logos, focas, seals. And what is really caught my attention for children, the most amazing thing is the krill. You mention the krill and they are like, oh my God, I love the krill. It's like, how can this little crustaceo can be so important for Antarctica? So that is the message I always want to spread, that Antarctica is not only penguins and whales, is more things, even the flora, even, you know, Antarctic, no, like maritime animals, a lot of things that I cannot say in English, but yeah, for me, it is really amazing, the wildlife and the fauna that you can find in Antarctica. So if you have time, you can investigate and study a little bit, and you will be as amazed as I am.
That's awesome. I love the passion that came out there. What about polar bears, Katia? Are there polar bears in Antarctica?
What do you think? No, there isn't. You know, it's really funny though. Also bringing up my students, the first thing they get confused with is penguins versus polar bears. And it is amazing how can you find the difference between the Arctic and the Antarctic. And with that simple example, they can see the difference. Okay, polar bear north, penguins south, and then they can know the difference. So it's amazing.
Awesome. And one thing that you mentioned, which I'm really glad that you did, was krill, because Antarctic krill is something that you don't necessarily see in Antarctica, but you know that it's there, and its relationship with sea ice and the Antarctic food web is hugely important. Chloe, do you want to kind of elaborate a little on sea ice and why it's so important to Antarctic wildlife?
Yeah, sure, Caleb. So we have lots of different types of ice in Antarctica. We have what we call the ice sheet, which is the ice that covers the Antarctic continent. And then when that goes over the continent, spills off into the ocean, we actually call these ice shelves. Now, when big chunks of ice shelves or glaciers break off, we call these icebergs. Now, these are all freshwater, so they've all started on the continent. But another type of ice that isn't really talked about as much is basically when it gets so cold during the Antarctic winter, the ocean around Antarctica freezes. But because the salt, it doesn't actually freeze with it. So that salt gets pushed out underneath. And what we've left over is quite a relatively thin layer compared to the ice shelves and icebergs of what we call sea ice. Now, sea ice, in my opinion, is the most important part of the Antarctic food web. So the sea ice can actually grow during winter and make Antarctica look double the size that it is. But during summertime, now all of our cities are down pretty far south of the bottom of the world. So because of the Earth's tilt, we get a lot of sunlight and we get longer nights. So a lot of that sun and that heat is actually going to melt the sea ice. Now, underneath the sea ice, we have a layer of what we call marine plants. So tiny, tiny little microscopic plants, just like what we have on land. They use the energy from the sun, but they do this in the water. And these guys are called ice algae or phytoplankton. Now, they are growing under that layer of sea ice, and heaps of animals are going to eat off that little phytoplankton. But the main one is the Antarctic krill that Katia loves and all his students love. So the Antarctic krill depend on all this ice algae. So all that green stuff underneath the sea ice, they depend on that to eat. But why are we worried about Antarctic krill? What's so important about these crustaceans? Well, not only there are so many of them, they have one of the most biggest biomasses of any wild animal on the planet. So all the Antarctic krill combined, the weight of them is bigger than all the weight of all of the humans on the planet. Now, the reason why there's so many of these krill is because so many animals down in Antarctica need to eat them. So even small, little 30-centimeter high penguins to huge 30-meter blue whales. So really small animals to huge animals all eat krill. So krill is basically the most important part of the Antarctic food web. But without the sea ice, we don't have any of that nice green plant material for the krill to eat. So like I said before, with Antarctica being very connected to what's happening in the world, and climate change is a massive, massive effect that is a real worry for our planet at the moment. Antarctica cannot lose too much sea ice, because if there's no sea ice, there's no ice algae, and there's no krill, and there will be no food for the squid, the penguins, the albatross, the baleen whales. So it's really, really important, these krill and the sea ice. So everything really is connected. If places are heating up on the planet, then you can just imagine how detrimental and how disastrous this could be for places like Antarctica, which when one little thing goes wrong, the whole food web will be disrupted.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and it's quite crazy to think how something so small can have such a big impact on Antarctica as a whole. What we'll do now is we'll move into kind of the reason that we're here, and that's to celebrate the 1st of December, Antarctica Day, which is the date in 1959 in which the Antarctic Treaty was first signed by 12 nations. Since then, the parties to the treaty has grown all the way up to 54, which is really awesome. Redzani, would you be able to kind of explain what the Antarctic Treaty is and what it's done and what it continues to do?
So the Antarctic Treaty, hello everyone. The Antarctic Treaty is it's a charter of principles and a charter of rules that not govern but also suggest ways in which the Antarctic environment, people should conduct themselves within the Antarctic environment. It encompasses at first it encompasses the amount of land a certain country could cover, but it is advised that countries are non-claimant, which is part of also South Africa's, because South Africa is also one of the non-claimant country that signed the very first charter. It's I would say a bunch of guidelines to steer us into becoming more cooperative, scientific, and there's one more word for it, I'm looking for it, and it slipped my mind. In order for cooperative, scientific, and harmonious in the African continent, Antarctic continent, with the minimalist of damage to the actual pristine environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you did really well on touching on those three main things, which is that cooperation and collaboration, that focus on science, and making sure that Antarctica is a place of peace. And Ridzi, I'll go back to you again. During our time in Antarctica, did you kind of feel the effect of the Antarctic Treaty at all? Did you notice that those values of international collaboration and dedication to science were present throughout our expedition?
100%. 100%. The scientists that were there, the glaciologists that I found that were helping us, that went with us to the glaciers, the student looking for sediments in sea ice, drifting sea ice, and a couple microplastics scientists, and all of them showed a very good passion for their science, but they also showed the fact that within all that, even though that is work, even though that's their passion, they carry a little bit of their country in there, and they want to share a little bit of their country with everybody else by inviting people. And that's exactly the welcome we got when we went to Antarctica. We got invited to the karaoke and we got to interact with actual scientists on the field doing the work that is necessary to save our planet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in terms of that collaboration, the main thing was that, and I think it's something that's quite unique about King George Island, is that there's so many different countries' bases that are very proximate to each other, and they're all willing to share their work and encompass what the Antarctic Treaty is all about, with that collaboration and that science. The next question I'll ask generally to the group, so feel free to unmute yourself and answer. Why do you think that it's important to celebrate Antarctica Day and celebrate the signing of the treaty?
I would say, Caleb, that just looking at this picture here, look at all these countries that have come together with the shared motion of wanting to protect and care and learn about Antarctica. So I think Antarctica Day, on the 1st of December back in 1959, when this treaty was signed, it should be a day that should be celebrated more and more, because Antarctica is a continent without a country. So every country on the planet has different ways of celebrating their culture and their country and their people. But Antarctica is sometimes a little bit left out. So I don't think it has enough recognition and days to sort of celebrate it. So I think Antarctica Day is a really good chance for the people to come together, because no one owns Antarctica, yet I feel like it is our duty. So all of the humans on the planet, it is our duty to protect it. And I think it's a really important day to remember that Antarctica does affect all of us. No matter where you are living on Earth, it does provide us a place to live on the planet, livable temperatures, like I said earlier. So I think at the end of the day, if people don't really know about something, they won't really be too much inclined to want to protect it. But if we have a day that celebrates this amazing continent, its surrounding ocean, and its all amazing creatures, then maybe people will learn about it more, they will know about it more, and then they will protect and care about it. So we really only, as humans, we're very, we're culprits of always protecting what we love. But if we don't really know what we're protecting, then how would we do that? So yeah, I think it's a great day to celebrate Antarctica, to get people to talk about it more, to bring it up in conversations, and to really appreciate how Antarctica gives us this amazing way of life on the planet.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
Caleb, I just wanted to add a little bit. It's important to remember that the treaty was originally signed in the middle of the Cold War, and the United States and the Soviet Union and another 10 countries came together and signed what is considered a masterpiece in international law because of its future-oriented way of protecting this continent. And one of the things that it protects from as the environmental protocol that it's an annex to the treaty that was signed a few decades later in 1991, called also the Madrid Protocol, it forbids the extraction of resources. And this is very important if you see now the scramble for space and the new space age and the opportunities that are arising for exploration and exploitation of resources in outer space. The Antarctic Treaty has kept Antarctica protected from that, at least from the second part of the 20th century onwards. And if you look at the first half of the century, there was indiscriminate exploitation of marine resources, driving some species almost to extinction. You know, seals, whales, all the industry, the whaling industry for oil and fur almost drove species to extinction. So the Antarctic Treaty came into being also to counteract, you know, sometimes our human disposition for indiscriminate exploitation of resources, and that's why the treaty is also so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the interesting things is that, and it kind of goes to show it, that the signing of the Antarctic Treaty has protected Antarctica from physical human contact, from the actions that we do on the continent and around the continent and the surrounding Southern Ocean. But the problem, I guess, that we're facing now is that our actions in our own cities can actually have these negative effects in Antarctica without us ever setting foot there. And so I'll ask this question to Florencia. Is there anything that you can think of that we can do in our home cities to help protect Antarctica?
Yeah, I mean, we can do a lot, but we are always inspiring people to at least small practices on the everyday life, like recycling, reducing, taking care of nature, getting to know more about Antarctica and the planet at all, and with small steps, and teaching the kids and our friends and our family how to be better persons, better people here in our everyday life in our cities. We are probably having a better future for Antarctica, because everything that we do affects Antarctica and the entire planet.
Absolutely. And I think those conversations, spreading your knowledge to other people, is so important, even if it's something as little as bringing it up in a conversation at the dinner table, or, you know, just telling a friend about Antarctica. It goes a long way in inspiring people to want to change the way that they act. And looking kind of at the youth, I think this would be a great question for you, Juan. Obviously, in inviting us onto your expedition, you saw something in us, and you had faith that we could lead a new generation of Antarcticans. How important do you think youth are in relation to Antarctica moving forward?
Thank you, Caleb. Yes, I think there's an important tradition of scholarship in the Antarctic humanities that is looking at heritage. Looking at the heritage of countries, the heritage of the age of Antarctic exploration, the heritage of Antarctic science, you know, from the International Geophysical Year onwards, but also before. So it's important to recognize the history and the heritage that some countries have and some cities have in their relationship to the Antarctic. I think it's also important, as we conserve and recognize our heritage, is to look into the future. And it's changing so fast, not only the political and the economic, but also the ecological and cultural domains. So it's important to engage the youth who are going to be leaders in the future, and if they're not leaders, they're going to be the people that will be dealing with the consequences of climate change and of policy decisions, and are going to be living in these 5 cities and other cities that are also a gateway to the Antarctic. So it's important to generate, as I was saying at the beginning, inspiration, love, humility for this part of the world. I think for people of your generation, that you're in your 20s, it's a hard time, not only because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we're living through very important predicaments. And I think it's important, as I said, to inspire the youth to take action. Sometimes we expect local government to take action, or businesses to take action, or national governments. But it's also important for civil society to take action, as we've seen in many countries, and step up when government and businesses sometimes cannot do things that are required. So it's important for young people, as I said, to step up. And I think U5 and all the colleagues and other young people that you're bringing together have a lot of responsibility in your role to continue inspiring other young people to work together with you in the years to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I totally agree. I'll carry on.
And what happens in your 5 cities, maybe except for Cape Town, that is, it's a mammoth of a big city with a different history and an older city than the other 5. A lot of youth migration there is from your cities to the centers of capitals in your own cities. So by engaging with the Antarctic, there's something that youth from these gateway cities have to show the world, and to stay in your cities and work in your cities to foster this connection and this inspiration. So I think there's an important role to be done in your cities as well as young leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of potential for these 5 gateway cities to really develop their identity and their passion and their way of role modeling how to protect the Antarctica. Because if we have 5 cities that are doing it right and doing it incredibly, other cities are going to take notice, and they're going to want to follow in our footsteps, and that leads to a more sustainable shared future for us all. So yeah, I think it's really important to celebrate on this day the hard work that's gone into protecting Antarctica. It's important that we come together as nations like we are now, and recognize that we've done something really special in showing love and care for Antarctica, and that over the last 61 years and even earlier still with expeditioners. But I also think that today's a really important day, not only to celebrate our success, but be critical of where we can do better and try to improve as custodians year in and year out. But I thank you all for your time. And I want to end this conversation on a really high note. So for the first person who can think of anything, can you just tell me what your favorite moment was in Antarctica?
My favorite moment would have to be, even though it was quite sunny and warm, standing up on top of the glacial dome, the Bellingshausen dome behind the Uruguay station, and just looking around 360 views of complete utter wilderness. And coming from a place that's already quite of a wilderness area here in Tasmania, I thought not much could get better than that in this place here in Tasmania. But Antarctica is like nowhere else on the planet. It's unparalleled to anything I've ever seen in my life. And it makes me inspired to keep it that way, and to keep it for the future generations to be able to see it one day for themselves.
Awesome. Do we have one more person that wants to share their favorite moment in Antarctica?
Karaoke with the Red Lion.
Yeah, there you go, Ruthie, you can go.
Sorry about that.
Flora, have you got
Karaoke
something you want to add?
So
cool.
for me, it was like a 6-day awesome expedition. It was every single moment. It was incredible. But I was remember just the day that we cooked for all the station. So it was a big challenge, but it was fun, and it was really awesome to be part of a team working together for everyone. It was a Sunday, so the cookers and the cleaning were resting, and we take a responsibility of that, and working together we can do incredible things. So it was a really good day.
Yeah, awesome. Before we wrap this live discussion up, I'd just like to pass it over to Chloe, who's going to let you know about what else we have organised for this Antarctic Festival Day, because this is not the only time you'll see us, hopefully, on this day. Chloe?
Yeah, so we also have on our website, which Caleb's just attached there, if you want to see what we did down in Antarctica earlier this year in February, we have a short little film of our expedition down on King George Island. So you'll get a bit of a feel of what it was like living on a research station, visiting these different research stations of different countries, some of the wildlife that we saw, some of the environments that we saw as well that weren't always so icy as we expected. We also have a really cool quiz as well that we've created, so hopefully you'll give that a go. We've given you some hints in this little discussion here that will feature as questions in that quiz. And then also we have this Antarctic Futures game as well, which is was developed by the Bigger Antarctic Cities project. And that's a really good way to see how things in the rest of the world can affect Antarctica. So basically you get little scenarios and you've got to make quick decisions to help save Antarctica before it becomes exploited or overrun and disrupted as well. So yeah, so that's what we've got for you today, but keep an eye out on that website as well, because we'll be adding some other stuff throughout the day. So if you are living in a gateway city and you want to find out what else is happening in that city, you can jump on there and have a look. And these are our social media links. And yeah, we're just really, really grateful for having this opportunity to reach out to you on Antarctica Day. And yeah, we thank you for your attention and your support.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to add one more thing, and that is that if you are interested in getting involved in the Antarctic Youth Coalition, please get in contact with us. If you go onto our website, there is a contact us section that'll link you to our email address, because we'd love for you to join us in our mission to inspire a new age of Antarcticans that brings cities together and creates a sustainable future for us all. So I think we'll end it here. Thank you again for coming, everyone. Thank you to our speakers. And please check out our other activities. But if not, we'll see you guys next time. So thank you so much.
Bye.